So you would be forgiven if you thought this was something like an RTX 3090, an RTX 3080, or some other extremely powerful GPU. But the fact of the matter is, this is actually one of the less powerful of the current generation graphics cards out from NVIDIA. This is just an RTX 3060, albeit this is a big boy. So today we are not actually even taking a look at performance figures from this particular GPU. Really, I'm more interested in having a discussion in those comments down below about the merits of these very large, very much oversized GPUs, because the card itself actually is quite short. It only comes to like about here on the PCB, but the fact is this cooler is huge and massive and just takes up a ton of space. But on the other hand, if you have a system that can accommodate that sort of thing, basically just accommodate a large GPU, then there's actually some benefits here. Now, as far as actually acquiring an RTX 3060, let me give you the backstory of how I got my hands on this thing for the price of $500 even, plus shipping, handling, tax, and all that. Basically, I got a Newegg Shuffle victory, which is really just you win the rights to purchase a GPU in a limited span of time, in which case I assume if you don't purchase the GPU through the Newegg Shuffle, they probably just raffle it off to somebody else. So it's really not winning anything other than the right to purchase a GPU at sub-market pricing. Because keep in mind, guys, this thing on the open market goes for like $700. It is not cheap. So very quickly, I do want to talk about the aesthetics of this thing. First and foremost, there is RGB lighting that you can control in software, though the implementation of the fan RGB is, well, I hate it. And that's because when the fans first start spinning, it is liable to cause somebody that is sensitive to this sort of thing to have some sort of seizure. I don't actually know that it would cause a seizure, but it definitely is not good to look at. However, I will also say this, once the fans do get up and running, like if you're in just general gameplay, it does become less noticeable, the flicker from the fan spinning around, but this all could have been solved if instead of just one light that gets spun by the fan itself, we had just an RGB ring around each of the fans. I think that would have been a better overall solution, or my personal favorite solution for this card at least is to just turn the fan RGB off, and if you really want some RGB, the logo does still have a light in it that you can work with. Now, one of the nice touches I do like is there is a light there by the Aorus logo that also tells you if the fans are just off, which you may or may not be able to tell easily with your case if you're in a just normal sort of horizontal look from your GPU. You wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that the fans are off, but with this way, if you have some sort of clear side panel, you can very quickly glance and see if your fans are even running or not, so that's a nice touch. Now, this is also a dual BIOS card, which is excellent because if you like to play around with flashing custom firmwares, you can do that with this card. And in fact, I really like this for those of you out there that are potentially looking to get some return on your investment through mining. Not that I recommend snapping up a lot of cards right now because the crypto mining market is just all over the place on a day-to-day basis, but if you're looking for use of this card with a custom BIOS to mine, you can flash one of these V-BIOSes with a custom mining BIOS, and then if you decide you want to game with the card, you can just restart the system and flip over to your other BIOS. So for those of you out there that do want to mine on your card that you also game on, a card like this would be really useful for that. And finally, that brings us to the reason for the video, and that is, does an oversized card like this make sense, or should you actually be looking to acquire a smaller card? And it all goes back to the original point I made, which is if you can get your hands on one of these cards for a good price, and if it fits in your computer chassis, then you should absolutely go ahead and pick one of these up, because frankly, it's gonna run quieter than a smaller card with a lesser cooling solution for it. That is, this cooling solution is so overpowered, you're gonna get great performance and borderline silence out of it even when it's pinned at full load. So for instance, I ran this card with Heaven Benchmark for 20 minutes, and I think the maximum temperature I saw was actually 56 degrees Celsius. And keep in mind, the room that this was running in was right at that sort of normal room temperature of around 73 degrees Fahrenheit or 22, 23 degrees Celsius. So it wasn't like the room was incredibly cold or incredibly hot. It was just sort of room temperature, and this GPU was performing absolutely phenomenally. And of course that was on an open test bench, so if you throw this into a chassis, it is likely to run a little bit warmer than that, though if you get a chassis that has good intake and good airflow, you should see very similar performance to that in gaming. Which also does open up the ability to then overclock this card. There should be quite a bit of headroom. There's going to be no power limitations as far as the power connectors go. We have an 8-pin and a 6-pin power connector when several other 3060s have just simply that 8-pin connector, so power delivery is going to be just fine. The memory modules are touching the cold plate of the cooler, and there is a thermal pad on each of those modules, so the memory modules should stay nice and cool. And then of course that GPU core obviously is staying very chilly by GPU standards, so this thing should actually be a really solid gaming card. And it's one that, although I don't necessarily love the price tag of $500 through a Newegg shuffle, at the same time, considering that you could find 3060s on eBay for around $700, the $500 that Newegg is charging is, yes, it's a scalping price, but at the same time, we don't know what Newegg's paying to get these cards in-house, and also it is still significantly cheaper than you could get one of these things on the open market. So, yeah, in other words, what I'm saying is if you're looking to scalp these cards, then you actually could buy them on a Newegg shuffle and sell them for a profit. So if you do get yourself in a Newegg shuffle for one of these things at $500, if you're looking for a GPU, you're probably not going to do any better than that on the open market, so go ahead and pull the trigger and get one of these cards. Now, this RTX 3060 is going to appear in a video in the very near future with fantastic airflow for the chassis. It's going to have a Ryzen 5600X. It's going to be an excellent build. I can't wait for it, but if you want to see that build, make sure you're subscribed down below, like this video, and everything else that goes with that. Let us know in the comments down below if you have gotten yourself into a Newegg shuffle and actually won the rights to purchase a GPU. Let us know how you did. What GPU did you get? What was the price that you paid? Did you get a crummy power supply to go with it, or did you get any other extras that were bundled with your GPU? Otherwise, if you do like the video, then give it a like, share, subscribe, and comment. All those things are very helpful for the channel. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos for my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.